Good morning, Peter Gertz here. I'm a psychiatrist. What is the purpose of your life? And what is the purpose of life in general? I'll give you some ideas that I have, and I welcome any feedback. I'm sure different people have a lot of different ideas. And I think that topic ties into another issue. Why is there so much suffering on this earth? Again, Peter Gertz, I'm a psychiatrist. So I deal with a lot of suffering. Why is there so much suffering on this earth? That's probably a topic for another little talk or a big talk. People are born with major genetic problems, for instance, mental problems, serious physical problems, heart defects, Down syndrome. So that's just at birth already. Why does that happen? And why is there so much abuse, physical, sexual, emotional abuse on this earth? Why do people get seriously ill, get injured, get Alzheimer's? And why there's so many wars? Why is there so much violence? So there are a lot of questions, I think, that are tied into what the purpose of this life is, and then secondarily, of course, what is your purpose in this life? I think that's tied in with that. And many people have thought about this for eons. One approach would be that we have karma, so that whatever we have not learned in this life carries over into the next life. Let's say, potentially, for example, we've been a violent husband in a past life or violent criminal. Then perhaps in this life we need to experience the other side, what it's like to be treated violently. So there's that potential aspect of karma. So from my perspective, one empowering way of seeing our lives is to see our life as if this earth is a big schoolroom, big school classroom. And that is empowering, because then by seeing ourselves in a schoolroom, that means that we're here for learning, and we do not see ourselves then as victims, no matter what happens in our lives. And terrible things can happen, and a lot of bad things happen to anybody. So that, I think, is one empowering way of seeing things and seeing our purpose in life, and that is to attend school in this schoolroom on earth, this school classroom on earth. And one example that comes to my mind in that regard is in her autobiography. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a well-known psychiatrist who specialized in issues of death and dying, issues connected with those things, she, later in her life, suffered multiple strokes, and she still kept writing on her autobiography in spite of the strokes. And she interpreted those strokes in her life as opportunities to learn what it's like to be cared for, because she'd spent her life caring for other people. So again, a little bit similar to what I just said about karma, she interpreted her strokes as opportunities to learn how to be cared for, as opposed to what she'd done previously in her life, which is caring for a lot of other people, I think professionally and in her family, for instance. And interestingly, she was one of triplets. So another aspect of what might be our purpose in this life is to balance our mind and our body, our thinking and our feeling, our head and our body, and be centered. And by being centered, we're in the current moment. We're not thinking about the past, we're not thinking about the future, we're not worrying, we're not depressed, we're just right here, right now, in this moment, and we're balancing our thinking and feeling. And if we can be in this moment, of course, the decisions we make are much wiser. Decisions like what career we're going to pursue, or even just basic things, what we're going to eat, what we're going to wear. And by balancing thinking and feeling, and being in the moment, feeling our body, and being centered, we're also, in my opinion, in a better position to be loving, to love others, to serve others, and basically make the world a better place, so to speak. As a psychiatrist or a doctor, one thing that helps me as far as purpose in my work, purpose in treating patients, purpose in going to work every day, are little things. So paying attention to little things helps me as seeing my purpose or finding my purpose as a psychiatrist or as a doctor. One example, when I was an intern on a surgical ward, and this was a Saturday. There was nothing much, it wasn't very busy. It was Saturday morning, and myself and another intern were on call. We were making rounds on the patients. And one of the patients was a relatively young gentleman, about 32 years old. He'd been shot in the neck in a drug deal that went bad, and then he'd been thrown out of a driving car and supposedly rendered paraplegic, so he could not move his legs. And that Saturday morning, I'd seen him in the emergency room, I think the night before or 2 nights before. So that Saturday morning, I was rounding on the surgical service, going to each patient's bed. And this was a very old-fashioned hospital. All the beds were in a row. And I came to this patient's bed. And again, that morning, I had time. And on a whim, I asked him, move your toes. And he tried very hard to move the toes of both of his feet. And he was able to just very slightly move one of his big toes. I think it was his right big toes. So he moved one of his large toes just a tiny bit, and that to him was a breakthrough. He began beaming ear to ear, smiling. So just that notion that it was possible that he was not going to be paraplegic, and he showed himself that by moving one of his large toes just a tiny bit, made him smile. So one could see that incident as a small thing, but small things can feel very big to patients in that situation, for instance. So those are some thoughts of mine on purpose in life, and I welcome any feedback. Thank you.